In the silent corridors of the royal palace, where the air smelled of incense and power, a god was about to die. The moon hung low over Thebes, pouring silver light onto the sandstone walls of Medinet Habu. Inside, the palace slept, or pretended to. Somewhere beyond the carved columns, whispers curled like smoke through the harem's corridors. Not prayers, but plans. He was Ramses III, son of the sun, lord of the two lands, the last true titan of Egypt's throne. His enemies were countless. Defeated armies, envious nobles, even blood bound to him by birth. Tonight, the gods would be silent. Tonight, mortal hands would decide the fate of a god-king. Tonight, the god-king would meet his assassins. In a room thick with incense and the scent of lotus, blades were being drawn. Silk curtains swayed with every nervous breath. Footsteps, soft, quick, crept closer to the sleeping pharaoh. Somewhere, far away, the Nile kept on flowing, ignorant of the storm about to break within these walls. But before we step into that blood-stained chamber, let's meet the man whose life and death would change Egypt forever. Welcome to the red pages of history, where every assassination leaves a scar on time. History isn't just written in ink, it's etched in blood. This channel dives deep into the most shocking assassinations across the ages. From fallen kings to silenced revolutionaries, we uncover the motives, the conspiracies, and the ripple effects that reshaped nations. Turn the page. The truth is darker than legend. 3,000 years ago, under the scorching sun of the Nile Valley, a boy was born into the house of Pharaoh, a boy who would grow to be Egypt's shield and its last great lion. Ramses III did not inherit a kingdom at peace. In the year 1186 BCE, the Mediterranean was a boiling cauldron. Waves of mysterious warriors known as the Sea Peoples crashed against Egypt's borders, burning cities and toppling empires. Most kingdoms fell. Ramses III did not. He rallied armies in gleaming bronze, his chariots thundering across the sands. At the Battle of the Delta, he stood like a wall between chaos and his people, turning would-be conquerors into scattered bones along the shore. Temples rose under his reign, vast stone giants carved with his victories, each inscription a declaration. The gods still favored Egypt. But even a god-king cannot fight the slow poison of time. Behind the carved walls and painted pillars, cracks were spreading. The treasury groaned under endless wars. Grain grew scarce. For the first time in recorded history, Egyptian workers laid down their tools in protest, their voices echoing through the capital. "Pay us, or we will not build your monuments." And in the shadows of the harem, where politics was played with smiles and poison, enemies were learning to wait. Ramses III had defeated armies, but could he survive his own court? The Egypt of Ramses III was a kingdom caught between glory and decay, a magnificent edifice standing against the tide, its walls still gleaming in the sun, while cracks spread unseen through the stone. It was the 12th century BCE. For over 1,000 years, Egypt had been the shining jewel of the ancient world. Its rulers were gods in human form, its temples repositories of unimaginable wealth, its armies the iron fist of the Nile. Yet by the time Ramses III took the throne in 1186 BCE, that supremacy was under siege from every direction. Beyond Egypt's borders, the late Bronze Age was collapsing. Entire civilizations, the Mycenaean Greeks, the Hittites, the city-states of Canaan, were falling to mysterious invaders known collectively as the Sea Peoples. These were not a single nation, but a storm of displaced tribes and warriors driven by famine, climate upheaval, and the lure of Egypt's riches. Ramses III inherited this chaos and did not flinch. At the Battle of the Delta, he lured enemy ships into deadly ambushes where Egyptian archers turned the river red. These victories secured his reputation, but at a terrible cost. The treasury bled, agriculture faltered, and the people's patience thinned. Inside the borders, temples rose under his command, dazzling works like the mortuary temple at Medinet Habu. They proclaimed his divine favor, but drained what little wealth remained. Grain shortages worsened. By 1152 BCE, the skilled workers of Deir el-Medina staged the first recorded strike in human history, demanding their pay in full rations. The royal court was no safer than the battlefields. The Harem was both sanctuary and serpent's nest, and it was here that Tiye, a secondary wife of Ramses III, began to weave the web. Her son, Pentawer, was not the crown prince. That title belonged to the future Ramses IV, and ambition burned hotter than loyalty. Tiye gathered allies, servants, scribes, guards, even magicians to weaken the king with spells. The conspiracy spread through palace corridors like a shadow at sunset. Timing was everything. The strike would come during a festival, when chaos was easy to mask and guards were distracted. In ancient Egypt, killing the pharaoh was cosmic treason. But to the conspirators, perhaps Ramses' failures proved the gods had turned away. They convinced themselves that this was not murder, it was necessity. The night was thick with heat, and the air inside the harem clung to the skin like damp linen. Somewhere in the palace, a musician plucked the strings of a harp, its notes drifting down marble corridors, the perfect lullaby for a king who would not wake. In his chamber, Ramses III lay beneath linen sheets, the glow of oil lamps flickering over walls, painted with scenes of gods protecting their chosen son. Outside his door, shadows gathered. The conspirators moved like phantoms, each heartbeat a drumbeat in the dark. First came the diversion, a sudden commotion in a distant courtyard to pull away guards. Then the door slid open just enough for the assassins to slip inside. The first blade found his throat, severing voice and breath in a single motion. Another hand struck at his foot, a wound so strange that centuries later, forensic scans of his mummy would reveal multiple killers, multiple weapons, chaos in seconds. The linen soaked dark. The god king's eyes that had watched fleets burn, stared into the ceiling one last time. Outside, the Nile flowed on, indifferent to the end of an age. The palace awoke to whispers that swelled into roars. Ramses IV, newly crowned, ordered the trial of the century. The judicial papyrus of Turin records what happened next. Tiye and Pentawer were tried in secret, Pentawer forced to take his own life. Servants and guards faced execution or mutilation. Sorcerers were condemned alongside the steel-wielding killers. The god king's death signaled the beginning of the end for the new kingdom. The treasury never recovered. The priesthood of Amun swelled in power. Foreign threats crept back. Egypt's golden age closed, not with armies clashing under the sun, but with the whisper of blades in the dark.